everyone, and welcome to Milwaukee's Tailgate Brewers podcast, part of the MKE Tailgate Network. This is episode 363. My name is James. I'm joined by Ryan as Paul, I should say, as we face kind of the bitter reality of having to go back to work, at least for a lot of us on Monday morning. Ryan, I know you've been back at work, but Paul, how have you been on this extended holiday break that we've at least been on for this podcast?
I don't want to go back to work, but I do want my kids to go back to school. So, little of each. It's been okay. It's been trying. There's been a lot of travel, as you guys know. Yesterday, went to Medieval Times with some friends and my kids who, my son likes medieval stuff. And honestly, I don't have much bad to say. Good show, very well done. Horse riding, very skilled, etc. However, one of our party reported food poisoning, or perhaps that virus that's going around. One of the two.
Oh, no.
Late last night, and nobody else in the party has been afflicted by it as of yet. But I started to feel just a little bit wonky about half an hour ago, and I took some aspirational Tums right before we started recording.
Oh no!
And so we'll see how this goes. Not quite sure it's going to work, but anyway, not sure if it was food at Medieval Times or if it was company at Medieval Times and small children having viruses, but kind of doesn't matter.
Okay, so in relation to this, James and I have a question that we were talking about before you joined us here, which is everybody who listens, us, we all need an update on what is the status of your carpeted bathroom in the basement. Is that a done deal?
I have equipment. I've started tearing up carpet in the carpeted bathroom, but that's as far as I've gotten so far.
Okay. Hopefully you don't need it, and hopefully the aspirational Tums kick in effectively.
It's still it is also currently still the home of our cat box, so it is not a place you want to spend a lot of time at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in better shape than it was before.
I would not. Ryan, how you been?
I can't get over that. So today sucked from a sports perspective. First, we got
it did. Yes.
The Liverpool
Sure
game
did.
this morning against Man United was just dreadful, and it ended in a draw, but not a draw that you should get against a team as bad as United is this year, and at home, and just they had a lead and then they gave it away, and it just terrible. And then the Packers decided to do basically the same damn thing and just like completely make the day sucky. So
mad at them. Just so mad at them.
Yeah, so like I'm getting over a cold from having been on the road because of course I got an airplane, and so I have that. It's just like it's all just misery and pain.
Yeah, I want to step on reporting as eligible, and I want to get through this as quickly as possible for previously stated reasons. But you can either try to win the game, or you can try to protect people from injury and just punt it with the understanding that you probably weren't going to get the 6th seed anyway. But you can't go halvesies on that, because that puts people in bad positions and gets people hurt, and that is what they did, and that's what happened, and it was just asinine, and just one of the worst coached games you'll ever see. Just awful.
Yeah, I'm not happy with how that ended, obviously. And to still be in the position to win it. And then, Joe Barry apparently returns to DC the last drive.
Geez,
it was bad.
Last defensive call was so bad.
Yeah, it was bad. But hey, Caleb, nice little drive at the end there. Happy for
not really,
least, but not
you got
the Bears.
horse collar tackled, and then they played everybody 40 yards off the line. That was 30 yards of that drive. He was garbage. Caleb sucked.
I cannot wait for reporting as eligible this week. And that's a good reminder that if you're a patron, you get question priority both on this podcast and on reporting as eligible. Should be plenty of questions after that Packers game.
Should post that actually while you're reminding me.
Go right ahead. We know now that they're going to be playing the Eagles on Sunday. So, good luck with that. Going to need to play a perfect game. They haven't done that in like a month. Anyway, patrons get question priority. Patreon.com/MKE tailgate. $2 a month is all it costs to get that perk. $5 a month gets you the question priority plus the additional content, including the reporting as eligible Packers mini pods and the minor league extra with Ryan and Spencer. All right. So talking about Brewers and watching sports, let's just start with this, that the Brewers announced that they will actually be returning to the newly named FanDuel Sports Network in Wisconsin for the upcoming 2025 season. That's a reversal of a previous announcement that they were looking to turn their broadcast production and distribution over to Major League Baseball. So basically what that means, if you have one of the many cable or satellite or streaming providers that doesn't have a deal with the former Bally Sports Network, means that you're stuck using their crummy app again, which I guess I hear from Bucks fans is even worse under the FanDuel branding than it was under the Bally branding, if that's possible at all. But, you know, it sounds like this might just actually be a one-year deal based on what the Brewers had to say about still looking at MLB for the 2026 season. Rick Schlesinger told Adam McKelvey, quote, long term, whether it's 2026 or thereafter, I do think MLB media is the place where we're ultimately going to land. And I think that's going to be in the best interest of the fans and the teams and the league to get a model that provides for the widest possible distribution across the most number of platforms with the highest technology and the best economics for the league and teams. So, first of all, you know, we talked, you know, whatever it was, a couple of months ago about, you know, the possibility of the new changes that we were possibly going to see with the Brewers switching to MLB, whether it was, you know, production style, score bugs, whatever. But, you know, Ryan, you're one of those afflicted by this and that you have to get the FanDuel app now. How disappointed are you in having to kind of continue this dance for at least another year?
Yeah, I'm annoyed. I was happy to cancel Bally's and be done with it, and I don't have the FanDuel app over the winter for the Bucks. I don't watch enough Bucks games to make it worthwhile for me. I'll watch when they're on ESPN or TNT or whatever, but I just don't watch it enough to make it worthwhile. So I was happy, and I was thinking we're going to get the MLB one, which is a better app. First of all, the app works. It works, unlike the Bally's app, which you could never count on actually working. And the quality of the reception and all of those things, like the clarity of the broadcast itself, is apparently much better on there. And so I was looking forward to having those improvements and those things. So yeah, from like that, as a consumer, I'm annoyed about it and it sucks and I'm irritated. I was kind of hoping that maybe I would get, because I'm season ticket holder, that we get the MLB TV app for free as part of that. I was hoping maybe that would extend, or we'd get a discount or something on the Brewers games, but that was probably a pie in the sky dream to begin with. So whatever. But the only upside of this is they wouldn't have done this if they weren't going to get more money out of it, if it wasn't going to be more profitable for them to do it this way. And hopefully that means that they're going to spend a little bit more money than they would have had this not happened this way. But as of yet, more on that coming. We just don't know. But yeah, it's irritating in the way that we have let's just go for the tag right now. The enshittification of everything just continues apace, right? Like it just continues. And so, yeah, grr.
So I'm going to just a very, very small disagreement. It's good they got it done for this year because they will get money for this year, but never good to have to settle for a stopgap, because it means that there perhaps wasn't as much interest in a long-term viable solution, or, you know, the ability to get it done in a condensed time frame. But it's not great for that reason. It just leaves uncertainty punted to the future. And you are on the side of the cable deals that you don't want to be on. So it's done. At least they have some distribution. At least they'll get some money. But it's still kind of no man's land for them, too. And it's not a great place to be.
Yeah, just to go back to what Schlesinger said there, because he's hinting at a thing that, from what I've read about this, and having read like Maury Brown and some of the other sports media stuff that I've seen out there, there is this feeling that we're headed towards more and more MLB media taking over the team's broadcast and taking this stuff over down the road. But right now is a transition period. So I think he's kind of hinting at the idea that, like, this is short term because we know that we're headed towards that MLB media model. As more teams do that down the road, I think the viability of it as they start to pool that money is going to become more. And I think it will benefit Milwaukee more to be part of that, where presumably that money is going to be pooled in a more, I'm not going to say like the NFL where everything's pooled and shared relatively equally, right? That's the NFL model. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be that, but as we move more and more towards that model, that will benefit the Brewers long term because they currently have had among, if not the worst media deals in MLB because they're the smallest market in MLB. So they don't get that good of media deals. And so from that perspective, like, it's going to benefit them to be able to join more of a pool down the road where when MLB media is taking over more and more of this in more of a league-wide sense. But we're just not there yet, right? Like, that's a process that's ongoing, and we're headed in that direction, but we're not there yet. At least that's the way I read the situation.
Let's go to some Patreon questions about this. Michael Parr is one of those poor afflicted people in Iowa that just get nothing due to blackouts. And one of the things about the MLB agreement was that, those blackouts may have been, lifted and folks like Michael could have watched the Brewers more consistently. That's not the case this year. So Michael is writing on Patreon, as a fan in Iowa, I obviously find the TV news disappointing, but there is some glimmer of hope that Amazon will provide access. Do we know any details about this option yet? Supposedly, the Brewers kept the digital rights to their broadcasts. Ryan, my assumption here was that it's basically just a re-upping of the same deal as last year. Is that pretty much right?
I can't really find much on this yet. I don't think the details on this have been hammered out, but I did see that they're headed towards Amazon having some sort of access to some of this down the road. MLB is partnering with them. And I think the teams that were on MLB last year, so like the Diamondbacks, those teams were part of that. But I can't find any details. Hopefully it's headed in the direction that somehow they're going to get rid of the blackouts and people in like Michael's position are going to be able to start getting access, because that's the most frustrating thing. And I don't have to deal with that directly. I mean, obviously I'm blacked out in market for MLB TV, but I can get the Bally's app the FanDuel, I guess, app now. I don't know what Michael is able to do as far as that goes. I don't know how that works for people in Iowa if they're able to subscribe to that, but God, I would hope so.
Same.
All right. Tim Braun asking a question that I think maybe was among the first that sprung to our minds. It's like, so the Brewers can spend money now, right? Because they hadn't at this point. So Tim Brown asking, so now the Brewers have announced a deal to continue with FanDuel Sports. When can we expect them to sign Alex Bregman? Okay. Or seriously, what can we actually expect with payroll now that we all have to deal with Diamond Sports and their bankrupt company? So, this is something that might have some implications to the payroll. Kind of talked about it a little bit earlier in that a lot of teams were sort of iffy on what the revenue streams look like for the streaming deal with MLB right now. And, the regional sports networks are the thing that everybody knows and is comfortable with, and it's dependable unless the company goes bankrupt. But, it did seem, Ryan, like a lot of the teams that were in similar positions with the Brewers are kind of sitting out this winter, so to speak.
Yeah, we've talked about this already, and I'll just reiterate. I went and found on John Becker on Blue Sky has been sort of updating this, and the teams who have yet to make a fully guaranteed MLB free agent signing this offseason so far are the Royals, the Twins, the Mariners, the Braves, the Marlins, the Brewers, the Cardinals, and the Padres. And off the top of my head, the only one that stands out there as a root team is the Mariners. Everybody else is Bally's /FanDuel /MLB /Orphans. So everybody else is in that boat. Those are the teams that haven't signed. Now, there are some split contracts here. The Brewers gave a split contract to Wolfram. There's been some extensions, whatever. But these teams are the ones who haven't been spending, and I think it's reasonable to infer that a big part of this hesitance to spend has to do, I mean, there's some circumstantial stuff here. The Cardinals are cutting payroll generally because they're trying to, get their house in order and figure out how to go forward. But I think a lot of these teams are just trying to figure out how to navigate this uncertainty in terms of what revenue is going to be, both now and in the future, given this situation. Because one of the things you have to remember is signing free agents is generally not a 2D principle. It's not most of the time you're not signing guys for 1 year. Or if you are, that's whatever, that's fine. But if you're signing big free agents, if you're signing guys who are guaranteed big money, it's usually over multiple years. So you have to have sort of a picture of what your revenue streams are going to look like. And I don't think even if the Brewers are set for this year with FanDuel, they can't really know what their revenue situation is going to be for next year. So yeah, I think at least a big part of this is teams not sure what the TV revenue part of the puzzle is going to look like. But it's not just that. I'm going to save that for the next question, but Paul, if you have any thoughts on that, go ahead.
I mean, it's a lot of that. That's perfectly stated. They got some cost certainty in terms of this year, but that's as far as it goes. And so to the extent that this helps their ability to sign anybody, it is 1-year deals or 2-year deals where they feel comfortable with their financials enough that they can make that happen, but nothing long term, like nothing. I have to save it for one in the future too. But yeah, like that is all it is. And so they're just not in a position where this changes the equation for them. It just doesn't. They're still going to be a cheap team this year. They just are.
On that note, we have a bit of a back and forth on the Patreon. So Adam Post asking how long until the Brewers get their offseason spending above the $0 mark? And Michael Parr responded on Patreon saying, to be fair, they have signed one MLB free agent, Grant Wolfram. It's just that the amount was not disclosed. And Adam Post said, you are technically correct, the very best kind of correct, as always. And if we're being technically correct, Ryan, that was a split contract too for Grant Wolfram. So it's not even a full MLB deal that they have signed. Mm-hmm. So any other thoughts on potentially what they could do this winter? I feel like we've been saying for a while, if they're going to make more significant moves, they're probably going to have to wait until February to see who's still there. What do you think?
Well, first off, let's talk about where they stand right now. And I'm going to use Kotz because I trust Kotz's numbers a lot more than I trust Spotrac for doing this stuff. Right now, their opening day payroll is projected to be $109.2 million. And so how does that relate to last year's opening day payroll? Last year, they opened at 104.3. So right now, they're about $5 million above where they were last year. Last year, they opened as the 22nd ranked opening day payroll. This year, they also figure to open as the 22nd ranked opening day payroll. As we all know, though, the way the Brewers do things, they tend to add more than your average team during the year. Some of that is just how they do business. They're adding and subtracting so many guys throughout the season, putting guys on the IL. Like, they just tend to run a little bit hotter. So they 2023, they opened at the 26. Sorry, the opening day roster was ranked 20th, and it was 19. They tend to move up in ranking in the year, not tend to move down, because they tend to add at the deadline. Even if it's not big, flashy ads, that's where it tends to be. So, but really, I agree with Paul and what we're talking about here, that this doesn't really open up a lot for the long term. It seems more likely that what they're going to have to do here is they're sitting and waiting and hoping that they can get somebody on basically a 1-year pillow contract, prove it contract. They're hoping to add somebody like that late in the off season. And to be fair to them, this is basically how they always do business. Going back to Yelich and Kane, those deals were done, if my memory off the top of my head, those were very late January. Moustakas and Grandal were done in February. If you look at, I guess Avisail Garcia was probably a little bit earlier, but you look at guys like Wong was late, yep. And Hoskins last year was certainly later in the going. I don't know if it was February or late January, but it was definitely late. So we have to be a little bit patient here and understand that when the Brewers do make moves in free agency, it really does tend to be late. So I got to sort of slow my roll and slow my negativity about this because I'm getting more and more pessimistic right now. I got to sort of slow my roll about that and realize, yeah, they tend to do business late, but I think it's fair to wonder where the money's going to come from and what they're actually going to be able to do here, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of long-term money available at the moment.
There doesn't, and it almost also doesn't really matter that much at this point. Doing business late, one of the things it tends to preclude is signing anybody good. Now, we've had people slip through the cracks every once in a while, and there are good free agents still available. But if you do go over to MLB's free agent by positions and you just dump them in a spreadsheet and sort by WAR, you will very quickly find how dire this gets very, very quickly. Alex Bregman is the best remaining free agent, 31 years old, 8.6 WAR. Next is, I just scrolled down to, he's not next. Pete Alonso is like 5. A very, very elderly JD Martinez at 3 is very high. Oh, I skipped a good defensive shortstop. Who is that?
Ha-Sung Kim.
Ha-Sung Kim, yeah. At 6.9. Those guys are the good. That's the cream of the crop, ending with very old JD Martinez. The next best available free agent by WAR is Mark Canha. That is the line.
On that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes. It is literally Mark Canha at 2.7 at that point. So every other free agent outside of the top 4, not pitchers, is worse than Mark Canha. That is what the Brewers have left to pick from. So, yay.
Yay. I want to go back to what Ryan said, because earlier this week, Ryan, the eternal optimist here, had like a very critical crisis in confidence about the Brewers. He was very worried that they were going to suck in 2025. Now, some of that has been calmed by the preview of the Zips projections, which also weren't fantastic, but, better than maybe what Ryan was talking. Ryan, do you want to talk about why you're suddenly, at least for you, pessimistic about the Brewers this upcoming year?
Yeah, so I remember how I was saying that I'm at the point now where they've done it so many times that I just need to accept the fact that, like, until they actually have a bad season, I'm not going to expect them to have a bad season. Like, that was my lesson that I took from last year.
Turns out that lasted until like January 3rd.
Right. Yeah. It lasted until about January 3rd. And that was because Ben Lindbergh and Meg on Effectively Wild mentioned that the Brewers were one of the teams that were the weakest at the most positions by FanGraphs roster resource depth charts. Now, this has been somewhat superseded by, as James was saying, the Zips projections, which came in and were a little bit better in some ways, at least, than what they had. But I mean, I'm looking position by position on the roster resource depth chart, and the Brewers are projected as the number 28th team in first base WAR, 20th at second base, 24th at short, 29th at third base, and 23rd in center field. Now, you can quibble with some of this stuff. I think I would especially quibble in, center field more than anything. I would quibble about that. And I don't know necessarily where some of those numbers and playing to whatever is coming from. But the point is that there's sort of a lot of positions of weakness, especially on the infield right now, where you can legitimately go, oh, I don't know how good it really is right now. And that has me worried. We have more on this coming up later, but they're sort of lucky or something to score as much as they did last year. They scored more than I think you would expect them to score this year. And we're losing Willy Adames. And it's sort of an open question to me how they're going to get to where they need to go, given what seems to be a very weak, especially infield right now. Yeah,
it's distressing. I also just think all of the analysis that's come out, we got early Pacoda, we had Zips. It just puts really, really, really stark spotlights on how much heavy lifting on offense Adames was doing. And without him there, it's just this giant hole, because we do expect like Contreras will probably hit okay. I don't know if he'll hit as well as he did last year, but he'll probably hit okay. They'll get their month of Yelich. Churio will probably take a big step forward, but a bunch of the rest of it is ugly. It really is. We know this team can withstand losing pitching. We know they can develop pitching, that they can plug in pitching. I have no problem just trusting in putting faith in their ability to do that. But I don't know where they're going to get offense. And I think that's where the worry comes in. Like it really does just look a lot worse than a lot of other teams. And given the financials that we just went over, people who are available to actually step in and hit, it looks pretty bleak as far as projecting their offense goes.
Yeah, it doesn't look great at the moment.
Didn't look great last year either, is what I would say.
I would agree with that.
Also,
but their shortstop actually hit.
Yes. You can't count on over producing on all your projections every single year. Eventually, that kind of comes to roost. And yeah, we'll see how much Churio can handle, I guess. We should mention the Brewers did make a minor trade to open the new year, trading pitcher Anthony Molina to Texas for Grant Anderson, who the Rangers had designated for assignment, but he does have an option remaining, so there is that, and that's why he's attractive to the Brewers. So that leads us to a Patreon question from Tricky Henderson, who's asking, if two unknown pitchers are traded for each other over a winter holiday when no one is around, does it make a sound? And then Zach Van Y asking, Anderson has been prone to home runs in a small sample. Can he fix it and become a right-handed Hobie? So Ryan, that kind of comes to, I guess, from his delivery, but I know we talked to Spencer when this deal was made, and it was sort of like, meh, on Anderson, but I guess, do you see anything else there that could make him at least interesting?
Yeah, so I would suggest people go and listen to the podcast that Jack and Spencer were actually recording when this trade broke. They actually broke out in the middle of the thing. So they were sitting and doing the looking up of who Grant Anderson was and what he was like live on the air while they were talking about it. So that was actually pretty entertaining. I enjoyed listening to that, and you did get to see a little bit of the process. And those guys really know pitching, so
yeah. It's like a 7th round draft pick where they just go over and like, well, Mel or Todd McShay, what do you got on this guy? And it's a few random notes. Yeah.
So I would say the most important thing about Grant Anderson is he seems to be a guy who can cover some innings, and I think there is something to this idea that he gave up more homers than you would expect. That the homer thing is just weird. There is a solid split between his strikeout and his walks. Like those are both average to slightly better than average. So like there's a solid enough split there. And he doesn't throw with big velocity, so that's not what you're getting. But the main thing you're getting here is the ability to send him up and down. They're going to use that option year on him, and he's going to be able to cover innings for them. That's, I think, the main value of Grant Anderson. If they can figure out something, if they can figure out a way to keep the ball in the park, especially for him, I think you could get some useful innings out of him. He's never going to be a guy, I don't think, that you're going to want to throw in high leverage. But if you can get him facing some of these more right-handed lineups, especially in the division or whatever, pick and choose your spots to use him where he's facing a lot of righties or lefties who don't particularly have power. I think you can squeeze something out of Grant Anderson. But mostly this is about being able to, promote and demote him and use it that way. He's a way to expand the pitching staff.
I mean, I have nothing to add. Don't scout the Grant Andersons of the world. I just look at their savant profiles, and that's basically all correct. He's got the markers of giant platoon splits. So it is just about controlling the other side. Maybe that you can work with it. I don't like guys who don't throw gas that well most of the time, and he's definitely not one of those. Some of his pitches do show some promise, but the problem for him is entirely the opposite side. So that's it.
At least they're not reverse platoon splits, so there's that. Yep. But yeah,
true.
I mean, also the Brewers are just going to need guys to soak up innings at AAA. That might just be it as well. They lost some guys in the Rule 5. There's going to be some guys getting called up, so that could just be it as well. All right. There were also some other rumor tidbits over the week, or at least since the last time we gathered for this podcast a couple of weeks ago. The first being a report by Kurt Hogue that Wade Miley is accelerating his Tommy John rehab in an effort to get back early in 2025, and he would prefer to pitch for the Brewers, even that means taking a minor league heavily incentive-based contract. Paul, is there any reason the Brewers would not agree to something like that?
No, there's not. You may as well. We like Wade Miley fine. We get the most out of Wade Miley. It's just you shouldn't have any expectations or count on Wade Miley for anything. You have to view him as gravy. But no, this is fine. He is like the perfect veteran to have with the Brewers pitching staff and personnel to keep him as healthy as possible and to tell him what to throw and what not to throw and work with him on that. He's good when he's healthy for us, and it's the every other year where he should be healthy. So I mean, eventually his arm will just fall off, but we're due for the good one. So yeah, that's fine as long as they're not counting on him for anything major. Totally on board with Wade forever.
Yeah, and if nothing else, if it doesn't work out, he's just an extra pitching coach, either in AAA or in the big league level or wherever. He's just another guy who knows what he's doing, and he's going to be a pitching coach in the Brewers system the second he retires anyway. Like, that seems like the most foregone conclusion ever. So, no, there's no reason not to do this. I did really enjoy some of the comments that he made where it was like, he was really open about the fact where it was like, some of these younger guys, they're taking time with their rehab. Not me, man. I'm just trying to get back as quick as I can. And if that doesn't work, then okay, I'm done pitching. But I'm just here to get back ASAP, because he wants to be pitching like late in spring training and potentially be back pitching in the big leagues by like late April, early May, which would be between 12 and 13 months after the TJ. That's a like Brent Suter level of coming back fast from Tommy John.
Yeah.
And
and he's 38 or whatever.
It's possible. Like, you could do it. Like, there's proof of concept there. And, he's at the age where he just doesn't care. It was great to just read that attitude. He's like, yeah, whatever.
Yep.
He's like, screw it. This is my last shot. Yeah. I hope it doesn't end similar to how, the John Axford return ended, where he blow out his UCL, like warming up on the mound, and he couldn't come into the game. Like that would be a bummer, but Kurt's article definitely worth checking out if you haven't already, just for the uncandid Wade Miley. I should say candid Wade Miley comments. Yeah.
I kind of feel like Wade would just start taking his shirt off on the mound as he's walking to the dugout.
Well, I'm done.
Yeah. Yep. By the time he hits the dugout, he's just like, he's like wearing a jock, basically. He's completely stripped off. He's
going out like was Antonio Brown did that.
Yeah.
He did that. Who is the Twins guy? Jorge Lopez, old friend, did that with the Mets as well.
Oh yeah, the Mets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. The other report we should probably quickly mention here was from Will Salmon and Katie Wu over at The Athletic, that the Brewers were among the teams who have expressed interest in a right-handed pitcher named Kyle Hart, who spent last year in Korea. From MLB Trade Rumors, they note Hart posted a 2.69 ERA and a 28.8% strikeout rate, 6% walk rate over 157 innings in 26 starts with the KC Dinos. He won the KBO League's answer to the Cy Young Award last year. Best pitch is the slider, but according to Eric Lungenhagen at Fangraphs, he used that less as a primary offering and more as a chase pitch to put batters away. He's not sure how Hart's arsenal of this plus slider, but only a 90-mile-per-hour fastball and an okay changeup will translate in the big leagues. Therefore, Eric at Fangraphs projects him as a fifth or sixth starter, even if they ranked him 48th on their off-season top 50 free agent list. I guess, Ryan, let's start with you. How interested are you in somebody with that profile? Does seem kind of brewery, also seems kind of limb bloomy. I don't know. What do you feel? feel
No,
like.
that sounds like the most Brewers shit ever, frankly. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that is exactly up there. And the Brewers have this thing where they take 5th and 6th starters and get like 3rd starter performances out of them.
right.
So,
You don't have a fastball, but here's a 2.90 ERA. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I'm a sucker for a nice big split between a strikeout rate and a walk rate. Love that. And you know what else I'm a sucker for? Those 157 innings. Those 157 innings sure do sound nice. Now, granted, at the big league level, he wouldn't be pitching that much. Almost certainly you wouldn't be getting that much work out of him. But just having innings available like that sure does sound appetizing. So, yeah, I would be perfectly interested in Hart. Bring it on.
I mean, I'm fine with anything at this point. Just bring me bodies
Spaghetti.
and we'll take a look. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you want to spend your FanDuel money on? Go for it, I guess. Yeah, fine. Other Patreon questions this week. Bryce Rosen asking, last week I asked who you would manifest as the ideal free agent acquisition. This time I'm asking which free agents are the Brewers most likely to sign that would make you throw your hands up in disgust and say, oh, God damn it, why? So, Paul, I guess, is there somebody you really don't want the Brewers to sign, but they might or probably will?
So, good answer for this question. I'm actually not totally against it because it would be funny as all get out. Brian Anderson is the obvious answer, who is a free agent,
the best third base,
who plays a position of need and is in their budget. That would be my pick because of
Craig's gone. They can play Brian Anderson now. Yeah,
I kind of want to see it, honestly. So that's on board. Also, the most brewery thing that would ever possibly happen at third base is, in fact, Jace Peterson, who is also a free agent at that position. And everybody at the bottom of the third baseman list actually used to play for this team. So any of them would be fun.
Yep.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
All of those are good answers.
I mean, the funniest answer is Jesse Winker, but I wouldn't actually be that upset.
That is the funniest answer, yes.
Like, I wouldn't actually be that upset, though, that there is so much water. Well, Willie isn't on the team anymore, though, so maybe that doesn't really matter. Although, I don't know. Jesse Winker's not coming back, but yeah, we've been all over this before. Josh Donaldson, I don't know. Like, that would be fairly.
He's
funny.
still alive? Yeah.
No, I think he actually retired. I don't know.
I think he
Not
did.
on the list.
Yeah,
he's gone.
He probably retired. I don't know. There's nobody that really like strikes me as no, because if they bring a guy in, they're gonna have a plan for what. They're not bringing anybody in who they don't think they can get something useful out of. So it just I doubt that there would be anybody where I would just be like, oh no, there can't.
I'm surprised your answer wasn't Tommy Pham, to be honest.
You know what? Yeah, but like I don't think they would do that. I can't imagine them doing that. But yes, you're probably right. Tommy Pham, just because that seems like a whole pile of crazy that I don't want to deal with.
Well, Van Gamel's still out there, so go for that. Omar Narvaez. No, I don't know. They'll end up with like
all of
Rizzo
the
or
worst
something.
available free agents played for us at some point. That's
Exactly.
pretty much the
Rowdy.
case.
Rowdy's out
still
there.
out there. Yep.
Yeah.
Very bad.
All right. Jay Google asking this week, are the Brewers in a weird spot right now with the infield roster? Like, they have guys ready to come up and play it in a year or two. So does that complicate what they want to do with Ortiz on moving to shortstop or staying at third base? Ryan, it is kind of a balance they have to play in keeping some spots open, so to speak, but also they kind of need to contend right now. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, there is a good point because there are infielders in the pipeline here, depending on what your opinions of guys like Tyler Black and Mike Bovee and Cooper Pratt, who ended last year in Double-A. So, I mean, I don't necessarily expect Cooper Pratt to be ready as early as 2026 or to start 2026, but he's not that far away if he keeps doing what he's doing. Eric Patanti's not far behind that. There are guys here that are potentially, could end up on the big league roster, but I don't think there's anybody that you're saying, oh, we need to hold open space for these guys. Like that's not what's going on. I don't think. I don't think they're like, oh, we can't, potentially block these guys 2 years down the road. I just don't think they have the money available right now to sign guys for longer than, a year or two. So I don't think that's necessarily what's blocking things here.
All right. Alex Foles asking another infield question. With Hae-Sung Kim supposedly giving the Dodgers the friends and family discount coming over from Korea, how much do you think it would have taken to get him to the Crew? And should we have even tried? So Kim was posted from Korea. Ryan, you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, no. So here's the deal. Do you know what Hae-Sung Kim is? He's a guy who has questionable power, who doesn't really have the arm to play anything but second base. We got that at home. So,
Sure.
We have that coming out of our damn ears at this point. Yeah, we have it everywhere now. So, no, Kim wasn't. This is Ha-Sung Kim's former teammate from Korea.
Yeah.
And Ha-Sung Kim has the arm to play on the right. Well, as long as the shoulder's okay.
That's the one we want.
Right.
Yeah. The former Padre we want.
Yes.
Not the one just coming over. No.
Exactly. That's the Kim we want. This was the Kim that, no. And he, frankly, he's willing to accept that he's going to be just sort of a utility player for the Dodgers. And that's what they're going to do with him there. But no, he was not a good fit for the Brewers' needs at all. So no, this was not a thing that we needed to do or we should have been looking at. Yeah.
Yep. I just wanted to make the family point in that if we want anybody, it's the third most valuable remaining free agent and not this guy. So
Ha-Sung, not Hae-Sung. Yep.
Right.
Exactly. M. Santana asking or saying first, shout out to Ryan for having his topic covered on Effectively Wild. With that in mind, 2 EW-inspired questions. 1, I would love to hear more about what went into Ryan's research regarding the Brewers runners in scoring position outcomes and how you did it. And 2, what are you looking forward to in the 2025 Brewers season? So, Ryan, nice little surprise you got there with EW.
Yeah, I was super excited. I was getting ready in the morning. I was listening to it on headphones while we were in Austin for the New Year's. And all of a sudden, I'm yelling at Amy from across the room while we're getting dressed and ready. They took my question like a big old dork. So
you're famous. Yeah. You're on a podcast.
I'm on a podcast. Yeah. So, it was fun, and it was very gratifying, especially that as soon as they said that he took it to, I forget which one of it was, that he took it to his stats guy to look it up and see. But basically what I did was I looked at the Brewers and compared how they hit with runners in scoring position versus how they hit with the bases empty over the last 3 years. And from 22, 23, 24, and I've mentioned this many times on this podcast, that they have been way, way better with runners in scoring position than they have been overall. And it's been persistent throughout these 3 years. It has been big gaps each of the years. It wasn't like there was some positive in 2 of the 3 years, but 1 year was doing the heavy lifting. No, there were big differences in each of the 3 years. So those would be the 3 years under Ozzie Timmons and Connor Dawson as the hitting coaches. Well, they went and looked it up, and they found out that, yes, in fact, the Brewers were the best team in terms of clutch runners in scoring position hitting over a 3-year span in MLB history. They had the highest TOPS plus for RASP over a 3-year span in MLB history. And they tried to kind of figure out what the deal was here, why it was that this had happened, and what does this mean? And Hannah Kaiser, who was filling in for Meg on that episode, kind of mentioned well, does this say something about them being able to read catchers, that they're doing something like that? But we know that they have you can't be stealing signs because people aren't putting signs down anymore. So they didn't really come up with a good explanation for it and a good reason for it. But it was, they basically acknowledged that, there seems to be something here. So it's, I think Hannah said, now this is a story that I'm strangely invested in that I didn't know existed 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 5 minutes ago. So, it is very interesting and I don't know how to feel about it. I can't really say that I think it's like I really don't know how to feel about it. There's another question coming up in a minute here about how the stickiness of this, so I'll save it for that. But what went into it? I looked up the numbers because I had been noticing it over the last few years that when I would go in and look, like there was a big difference between their hitting with runners in scoring position and whatever. And so I just checked all the final numbers on using I think the FanGraphs splits and did that.
It's one of those things people complain about incorrectly all the time. So like it's there's a lot of motivation to look up this specific one. It's like I've not gotten cool stuff on Effectively Wild before, but there's stuff that just gets in your craw that you're like, that there's no way this is true. I'm going to go figure it out and yell at people online about it. And this one really paid off for you. So nicely done.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely, I'm sure that's where this originated, was me wanting wanting to snarkily say to somebody, you think they're bad with hitting runners in scoring position, but you're actually quite wrong. And yeah, I'm sure that's where this originated and why I was looking it up, because that is absolutely something I do. So yeah, but it is very, very strange, and I don't know what to think of this in terms of, like, he asks, what are you looking forward to in the 2025 Brewers season? And I don't know if that's just a completely general question about anything or specifically related to this. I am very interested to see if this sticks. Like, I'm extremely interested to see if they continue to do this year, because I think if they do it this year, I'm going to start to think they have figured something out. They're doing something, because 4 straight years with big differentials positively this way would really have me thinking there's something there. Overall, what am I looking forward to in the 2025 Brewers season? Jackson Chourio, man. Like, I want to see him take hopefully the next step. Like, that's, fingers crossed, he becomes the biggest superstar in, well, at least that's Christian Yelich in 2018. That would be cool. Yeah.
All right. You did mention a follow-up question here, or at least semi-related question. Lucre Suitcase asking, piggybacking on M. Santana, do you think there's actually something sticky, as you said, to the Brewers runners in scoring position success? What do you attribute the success to, if something more than random chance? I guess my first thought was, well, Willy Adames had like the weird fluky 3-run home run thing last year, but as you guys mentioned, this is a few years running now, Paul. Right. So what do you think?
I wonder. So I think we're still not past the random chance possibility. Weird things do happen multiple years in a row, but it's pretty weird. Like runners in scoring position, like clutch has been researched to death in baseball for decades, and you basically never find it. In the now ancient prospectus book, Baseball Between the Numbers, they wrote something about this 20 years ago, basically found that there's like 3 guys ever who were sort of clutch. One of them was actually Molitor. But even that had so much noise, and it was mostly just like good bat control guys who actually were good at putting the ball in play in situations where it warranted it. So this, after hearing, I went and listened to that EW and caught up a little bit. It's got my attention too. And if I had to put money on 2 different big potential things, the first one would be, since they do have the pitching lab that is more developed than almost every other team's, not all, but almost every other team's pitching lab, that they are getting intel on other teams' pitchers that they are making actionable at a higher rate than other teams are. We know that there are new hitting VR simulators out there. Perhaps they are putting their guys through paces in specifically high leverage situations. It's hard to focus on an opposing pitcher's tendencies in great depth because you see so many different pitchers over the course of a year. But if you focus on a couple situations that are likely to come up, you can maybe make something of that. But the other one that I think we can't discount just because we're Brewers fans is some kind of cheating. So we got to leave it. We got to leave it out there because it does happen in baseball. It has happened before in baseball, and people are very clever at figuring out ways to cheat. So it's worth monitoring for sure, and it's worth keeping an eye out for both weird things and technological advancements that get copied by other teams.
So I don't want to completely dismiss the idea of cheating, but I'm trying to figure out what it would even be. I spend a lot of time walking around Austin trying to figure out what actually, like, what would that actually be? If it was that, if they're stealing signals at second base in terms of where the catcher is setting up.
Do you guys pay attention to chess at all?
No.
Do you know about cheating in chess over the last decade?
Oh, yes. I've heard
and
that,
how
yes.
sophisticated it's gotten, and how much people are willing to go through to do it. And there's very strict clothing restrictions. The people have done some kind of gross things that I'm not going to mention to cheat. But if you think about how the Astros got caught, the reason the Astros got caught, the only reason the Astros got caught, is because some idiot was hitting a garbage can loud enough for the broadcast to pick it up. It's pretty easy to eliminate that from this chain of events. And I think we all sort of discount the idea that someone would do this again because the penalties were, well, I don't know. Were they that severe in retrospect? Not really.
No. I mean, what was the penalty, honestly? Yeah. AJ Hinch had to go manage the Tigers. That's it.
You'd think people would be scared to do it because the Astros got caught. But it's pretty easy to engineer around the way in which they got caught. Like it's easy to communicate silently with other people via buzzing, via radio that's not that detected. It's really not that hard. So we should not dismiss it. It's totally possible.
It's possible, but let me then ask the logical question: why would you go to all that trouble to do it, and then only do it with runners in scoring position and not do it overall?
Leverage? I don't know.
I mean, you are concentrating on leverage then. Maybe that it's as simple as that.
You're concentrating on leverage, but wouldn't that then leave a paper trail that, like, then it leaves this weird split that then people could go, okay, so what are they doing differently? Like, what is, like, wouldn't that naturally, like, wouldn't it be smarter if you were going to do that? Just do it all the time. Do it in general. Don't just confine it to this certain high leverage circumstance. I'm trying to work through this in my mind because I couldn't figure out what you would do in the situation of having runners in scoring position that you couldn't do overall. Like if you were intercepting the signals or whatever from the what is it, the pitch comm? Like if you're intercepting those signals, wouldn't you just give them all the time? Why would you?
I think the answer may be as simple as the more you do it, the more likely it is to be detected by somebody. Like if you're on everything all the time, maybe teams start to be like, hey, they're on us all the time. And, other teams' analytics departments notice. Whereas if you don't do it all the time and it looks normal most of the time and it happens in high leverage situations, at least for a couple of years, it does just look like noise. It just looks like, Willie's been hot for, a season on 3-run homers. It might be as simple as that, like as evading detection. Like, how in World War II, Bletchley Park couldn't act on all the intel they got from breaking the Enigma. They had to actually strategically not stop some attacks from happening. Like that kind of thing also makes some sense.
Yeah, The Imitation Game is a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, watch that movie because it's fantastic for a number of reasons. Really, really good. That's what Paul's talking about because read
Cryptonomicon, one of the two.
Cryptonomicon, I will have to add that to the list. This is just one of those confounding things, and I don't know, but I'm definitely going to be watching and tracking it. And frankly, what I would like to see is for the overall hitting to come up. Like that would be the best outcome, and just have it all be good all of the time, and not have this big weird split between when they're hitting with runners in the scoring position and when they're not. But yeah, it does sort of boggle the mind because this is something that everybody has been chasing forever, trying to figure out how to do this sort of thing. And the Brewers seem to have either stumbled into something or skullduged their way into something. I don't know. And it is fascinating, but it was very gratifying to find out that, it wasn't just some little thing. Like this was a historical event that the Brewers were really, really good hitting with runners in scoring position for the last 3 years. And I was joking with a friend via direct message that don't anybody tell talk radio, though, because their heads would probably explode at that little bit of information that actually the Brewers were the like most clutch team in history over the last 3 years, because they wouldn't believe it for a second.
Well, why can't they do it in the playoffs then, Ryan?
Yeah, if you can't do it in the playoffs, then what are we even doing here? So yeah.
All right, last Patreon question this week, and then we'll get out of here so Paul can go get some rest. PJ Wessels saying, Happy New Year. Michael Parr covered the pain of fandom in Iowa. Yeah, it sucks. What job besides baseball operations or personnel would you want with the Brewers? Marketing, legal, grounds crew, etc. I don't know. Paul, what do you think here?
I feel like I would, at this point in my career, rather work in football. Baseball's hard. They're better at analytics than I am capable of being at this point. So you might think, well, Paul, you should be on the legal side, and I could do that. Like, I am capable of doing that. But by the way, I am I'm not a labor lawyer, but in terms of labor management, I am almost always on the side of management. I work for big companies. I'm obviously not against it enough to not do it.
Right.
But baseball is really hardcore on labor. So I don't know about that. But there's probably other legal jobs there too. But it's not like I do litigation work. I don't think they have a huge profile there outside of
lobbying is where the money is, Paul. So go for that. Yeah.
So I don't baseball also working in baseball, from what I hear from many people, if you love the game, great, but it's kind of miserable in terms of like work-life balance and grindiness. So I think it's one of those things where I just don't want to work in professional sports. I'm past the sort of glow and celebrity of it. So my answer to this question is a player, specifically a relief pitcher, and that is the only thing I would do. So that's it.
Oh, yeah. That's outstanding. So I do know somebody who is on the grounds crew actually for the Brewers, and that seems like a pretty sweet gig. He works. We used to work together at the same day job, and that was his night and weekends job that he'd had since college, and he has held on to it despite not necessarily even having a need to do so, because it's fun. He just enjoys doing it, being down on the field, being down and around like the players, and doing a lot of that stuff. So if I was younger and didn't have, the back issues that I have right now, grounds crew seems like it would be kind of an awesome like job. I kind of wish I could go back and, do what he did, which was to sign up for it when I was like 18 years old and say, yeah, I'll be part of the grounds crew. Seems like a pretty sweet gig. But things that I could actually do, I don't know, like being an usher. I've done that. I've done security.
You've done security.
I've done security for Summerfest for 6 years. And that was much more of a, like, we were in the pit, like protecting the stage of the Marcus Amphitheater. So I did that for a while. But I would probably get busted and yelled at for watching the game too much and not paying attention to, like the job part of it. Because that was always kind of hard not to turn around and like look at the stage, because you want to turn around and look at the stage. It was better when I was a supervisor and I could sit off to the side of the stage. And so my job was actually to look towards the stage at the people in the area. That was better the last few years I did it. So, I think those would be the things. I don't have the programming chops or the statistical analysis chops to be able to, that stuff got so far beyond anything I could imagine like decades ago that I would just be hopeless. My wife, on the other hand, we've talked about it. She's seen some jobs for like data analytics that have come up because it's what she does. She's a software engineer. And right. I've joked with her like, hey, if you took that job, I'd probably have to quit doing the podcast, wouldn't I? She's like, yeah, you probably would have to quit doing the podcast. But in terms of work-life balance, that was kind of what I told her. I'm like, yeah, you would be working like 70, 80-hour weeks. She's like, no, thank you. I don't need that in my life right now. So, yeah.
Probably for a pay cut, too. Yeah.
I would imagine, yes. I would imagine, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's fun to think about, but yeah. The old axiom of, find something you're good at and then spend your free time with the things that you like to do. I don't want to mix the two. So that's probably where I land as well. All right, that'll do it for Patreon questions this week. Thank you, everybody, for sending those in, especially in the off season, especially critical in helping guide the conversation here every week. Patreon.com/MKE Tailgate is where you can go to sign up if you're not a patron already. It only takes $2 a month to at least support us a little bit or get your questions answered here. $5 a month. You get all that extra content on both the Brewers and Packers side as well. Even if you're not a patron, you can support us another way. You can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you are listening to us right now, and give us a 5-star review. And while you're there, be sure to hit the subscribe or follow button. Make sure you never miss an episode if you're new here, especially as we get ever closer to spring training. It's kind of weird to think that we're in January now and spring training is a little more than a month away. So, man, that offseason is flying by quick. But as things keep happening, maybe the Brewers will sign a free agent. I don't know. Weirder things have happened, so we'll talk about it. Fingers crossed here. But whatever happens in the next week, we'll be back here next week in the new year. Happy 2025, everybody. Thank you for listening in, and have a good, happy new year. We'll be back here next time on Milwaukee's Tailgate.
Not what I am, even though the zip code has changed. I might smile and joy when I'm unemployed. Your soul can't be rearranged. It's hard to understand, so hard to understand. Fair weather, fair weather, fair weather band.
How you feeling, Paul?
I'm okay. I think the Tums have done a little bit of good so far.
All right.
Aspirational Tums.
Yeah.
For the win.
Tums.
Yeah.